All right, so we got another thing to talk to you about.
Yeah.
It's really
You're not
been
gonna like me so much after this. I don't think.
no. Well, you know the thing is, it's not even about me liking or disliking.
Yeah.
But I get so many different kind of people on this show. That,
Okay.
I mean, but this is a platform here, and like I said, you're a member clearly of the community,
Yeah.
and representing
Yeah.
members
I
in
try
the
to- I
community.
try
And
to.
so, wanted to talk to you here. One of the things I know you wanted to discuss was the Northwest African American
Yeah,
Museum
yeah.
and the occupation out in
Yeah.
front of Northwest African
Yeah.
American Museum. I guess first I'll throw it to you. What are your thoughts
Well,
around this?
I just got some notes here, and because I want to do the notes because I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody.
Right.
I just have some problems. I have some problems, and I want to just outline them. The first problem I have is I disagree with the notion of you got to be born in Seattle to make a contribution. This nativism, which is the kind of attack that is going on against the people, the present director. I think that's a problem because that's the same notion that white supremacists use. It's the same notion that Trump used. I mean, to get Mexicans out of the country. Nativism is not a strategy for our community. We need all hands on board. We can't just pick and choose if you were born here, if you're not born here. And I think that Lanisha is a great person, and she's doing a great job. Also, I have a problem with threatening black women. I have a serious problem with that. I think every man who abuses his wife has an excuse for that abuse. But the problem is that 40% of black women will experience domestic violence in this time, in their lifetime. 2.5 times more likely to be murdered by black men. And 92% of black women are killed by black men. So I have a problem when we put black women in the crossfires where they can be affected violently. That's just a problem for me. And I think in this case, it's two organizations headed by two black women. Now, what is being contested happened before they came. And they are now in the crossfires. And basically, they've been threatened. They have been literally threatened, and they're being threatened by the very fact they're in the crossfire, that we put them in that place. Another problem I have is putting black leaders in position, black women leaders in position to have to call the police on black men. I think that's unfair to black women. I was reading a story about Megan Thee Stallion, whose boyfriend shot her in the foot. And when the police came, she said she told him a lie. And she told him a lie because she was afraid of what the police was going to do to her boyfriend. And I think that we can't continue to put black women in a position where they either have to take what we do to them, call the police on us. And many of them are reluctant to do that because they know what the police are. The police are murderers of black men, historically. And we don't want, no woman wants that, no black woman wants that on her conscience. Another thing I have is that creating the environment that sets a terrible example for our young people. When we are fighting each other like this out in the open, there are 50 people murdered in the city of Seattle. 49% of those were African American kids between the ages of 18 and 40. And if we are fighting for turf, if we can't resolve our issues, what are we saying to our kids? They're fighting for turf. They're fighting for turf. They're fighting each other for turf. They have grievances with each other. They have legitimate grievances, but we can't lead them doing the same thing that they're doing. Also, I think that this whole occupation is diverting the attention away from the pressing issues of our community. For example, before this occupation started, we were engaged in police reform. Legitimately engaged. The whole community was engaged in trying to reform the police. But now the community is divided about this occupation, and the police are getting away scot-free. To me, that's a problem. Another problem I have is the whole issue of economic justice. We need to be pressing that issue. We need to be pressing the issue that 13% of the population, we have 13% of the population of this country, but 40% of the homelessness. We need to be pressing the problem of gentrification and the problem of reparations. And finally, We all have grievances. In 1995, they blew up my church. Blew it up.
Who's they?
I don't know. The fire department said it was an accident. The lady across the street said the fire shot all the way to her window. Norm Rice was mayor. Nothing was done about it. While we were building, somebody set another fire in the basement that sent black smoke billowing through all of the ventilation system. We had to spend over $250,000 to clean it out. When you talk about grievances, all of us got grievances. But what are we going to do? Are we going to stop and impede the progress of our community because of our grievances? Or are we going to fight in the right way? And I think that if we want to fight grievances, there are ways to do it. We can negotiate. We can set up panels for negotiation. We can do mediation. We can do arbitration. We can resolve it in court. There are peaceful ways to deal with our problems as a community. And I think we need to teach our young people those peaceful ways.
Right. And so a few questions here and also some context for some of our viewers. Some of our viewers here in the community, they're well versed on what's going on at the Northwest African American Museum. So others might not be. Some people, we had an interview I did with Omari Tahir. It was about an hour-long interview. Also talked to Meriwether over at the Urban League. And of course, Patrice from NAAM has been on here a few times as well. But what do you feel are the next steps for around Brazil? I mean, you've brought some points here that that you've broken down as to ways forward. That building was occupied from Juneteenth. The front of the building was occupied from Juneteenth of last year until just a few months ago, when the sheriff moved some of the occupants out. It's still quasi-occupied right now. I was just there the other day for an event. But where do you see this moving forward? Where do you see it going? I know that you said the things that you want to happen, but I mean, where do you see it going, and what role are you trying to play in getting a resolution? Well,
I think, first of all, I want to say that I respect Omari and his contribution to this community. I'm not against Omari or anybody who was a part of the original occupation. I mean, I wasn't here at that time, but I came after that time, and I was supporting the museum during that time. And I even allowed some of the meetings to happen in the church, the negotiation meetings. And I do think that there was some injustice done. I mean, I'm not naive about that. But what I am clear about is that this situation is untenable. We cannot have a situation like this where black women are caught in the crossfires. And
maybe you might want to explain that then to some of our audience. Like I said, people who are on the inside of this, we have a lot of information, but you're talking to people who might not be aware.
Well, we have a black lady who is director of the museum, who knew nothing about all of this prior stuff, who is now caught in the crossfire. She can't operate the business of the museum because of the occupation, and she feels threatened. Literally threatened. She feels that, and she has been approached in a threatening manner by black men. And that's something that she doesn't feel comfortable in her workplace. That's not something we can, as a community, embrace and accept, especially as black men. I mean, we just can't. We have to draw the line in the sand about our black women, and we have to say that there has to be another way. I'm willing to be a part of any mediation or any kind of fairness that works out any kind of fair solution. But that can't start as long as there's a threat of violence against black women. That can't start unless people remove themselves from the place and say, okay, let's enter into some sort of negotiation and in a fair way. I'd be willing to do that. I'd be a part of that.
So two things. So NAAM, now that the COVID restrictions are lifted, I know it was one thing when everything was already closed because of COVID. Now that the restrictions have lifted and the state is open, are you saying that NAAM is unable to resume their operations because of the occupation occurring out in front?
Well, women feeling threatened in the workplace is a serious matter. And this woman feels threatened. She feels that her life is threatened. Her well-being is threatened. She doesn't want to be somebody in her face saying negative things to her every day when she goes to work. And the environment there, I mean, you have people, I don't really want to be too graphic about it, but I mean, there are no porta potties there. So, I mean, what's going on there? So I'm saying she's a black woman, and proud black woman, who basically doesn't feel that she has to endure this kind of affront, especially by black men. And she would be the first to say that the museum needs a lot of work, that whoever put it together did not do the work, did not put the work in. But this woman is head of the national museums. She's head of all the black museums in the country. They voted her president. She knows where to take the museum, if given the chance. Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do this work and put this work in to take the museum to where it should be. All of us can decry where it is, but somebody has to put the work in to take it where it should be. And I think she's able to do that. But she needs our support. And she definitely does not deserve to have a hostile workplace.
Right. When you talk about negotiation, I mean, people negotiate when they have like a chip, you know, and the chip that Omari Tahir's group has is the occupation. And so, you know, do you think that's viable when you say remove themselves and then negotiate? Because now they've kind of given up their chip if you're going to go into a negotiation.
Well, I think that a chip that is premised on and based on the threat of violence against a black woman and intimidation of a black woman is not a chip. Mm. And I think that that's the same chip that abusers use in their homes every day, that I can beat you up if you don't do what I say. That's not a chip. That to me is something that we cannot respect and give any respect to. So there can't be a negotiation around that. I think that their claim or their legitimate sense of being aggrieved, of being disrespected and being hurt is a chip. For example, right now, in 1969, the city took land from New Hope Baptist Church illegitimately. And in that illegitimate claim, they called black people in the central area the ignorant. They call them the people that are not needing sympathy. I mean, we have the documents. Went to the archives. We got all the documents. I'll send you a copy of the documents if I get your email. I'll send you a copy of what they said in this report. And all of this gentrification is coming from that report, 1969. But they took land from the church. We are appealing that. We're trying to get that land back. And we're going through processes, both legal and community-based processes. I think that there are processes that we go through. I think that Omari his picture should be front and center in that museum. I think that his story should be front and center in that museum. I think that he has chips without entering into violence in this way. But you know, I think that those chips can't be played until this is taken away.
All right. Well, you know, this is we've been literally following this story for a year, and I mean, one thing about Converge is we've given people on both sides of this issue airtime to be able to really voice their opinion. You know, and I think that's important. And
I appreciate it.